So welcome to Chief Executive Shout Out. Can you believe that this is the first Chief Exec Shout Out of 2022? Clearly we've had quite a lot going on across the Trust, not least of all our continuing operational pressures, and we've been dealing with COVID. That hasn't quite gone away. But this Chief Exec Shout Out has got some really great conversations. We'll be talking about our green sustainability plan, some of the fantastic work that the Dawn Network is taking forward, and importantly what we're doing to help our patients get home with our hospital to home scheme. And I can't think of a nicer environment to start than at the back of the hospital, where we are developing a beautiful outside space to really promote health and well-being. We've got a nice cafe area, we're going to revamp the pond, and as you can see we've got a lot of environment development work going on here. Ideal for our green sustainability plan. So I'm really pleased to be doing this next part of the Chief Exec Shout Out down by the pond, which many of you will know is at the back of the Postgraduate Medical Centre. So there probably isn't a more fitting place to have a conversation with my next guest for this month's Chief Exec Shout Out. And UHP is really committed to the contributions we can make to wider society. And I'm really pleased to be welcoming Kirsty Wavish, who is our Green Plan Programme Manager. And she's here to tell us all about the work that she's doing to reduce our impact on the environment, to reduce carbon emissions, and most of all, the contributions we can make to a more sustainable planet. So Kirsty, a really, really warm welcome, and what a great place to be doing this conversation. So Kirsty, we agreed our Green Plan back in 2020 and quite a lot's happened since then.
Yes.
But tell me some of the things that we've done already.
Okay, so one of the key things that my role is to do is to roll out a staff behaviours engagement programme to try to encourage staff to become more sustainable. So we launched our Choosing Greener programme back at the beginning of February, which has so far been really successful. It's a pledge and reward scheme to encourage our staff to become more sustainable, develop more sustainable habits and change their behaviours and what they do in their day-to-day lives. It can be anything from energy, turning off lights, turning off equipment when they're not in use, to looking at single-use plastics, not using single-use bottles, opting for reusables instead, and starting to look at how we're looking at our organisation as well in terms of waste. In departments, having a look to see where you see waste and it frustrates you, what can we do to change that? So we've now developed many avenues for staff to get involved. So back in October 2021, we started our new governance programme for the sustainable, for the Green Plan. And out of that we had 4 working groups. We've got the Sustainable Futures Group, we've got the Sustainable Behaviours Group, the Sustainable Environment Group and the Sustainable Plymouth Group. Now the Behaviour Group is really, really key for the organisation because that will really help to for staff to understand how they can change their behaviours in order to become more sustainable. Like I said, in terms of single-use plastics, turning off equipment, looking after our environment, looking after our green spaces. We have a wonderful site at Derriford. We have so many different aspects that are there to enjoy. It's embracing it, looking after it, not spoiling it, respecting it, and also enhancing it. What can we do to improve what we've got, etc. So, part of the Green Plan as well is that we have our draft biodiversity plan, which will look at increasing our biodiversity on site. So that will be habitats, green areas, really sort of making our environment really healthy and a wonderful place for us to be in.
That sounds fantastic and so comprehensive, and I think really what you're saying is there's lots of resources, and if you're sat there feeling, well, I don't know where to start, or I can't really make much of a difference, the message is you absolutely can make a difference just by making some small changes. And I'm sure on our staff network site there's lots of information that you can access to make your contribution, and presumably if you want to get involved, because this is a subject and an area that is dear to many people's hearts and so important for our, not just today, but for our futures as well. Now, we've got a green plan, we've got our groups, we've got lots of activities going on. What sort of goals are you setting? How will we know whether we're being ambitious enough? And what sort of things are we trying to achieve, and by when?
So in our green plan, we're looking at reducing our carbon emissions by 25% by 2025. So a lot of these initiatives that we've got in place will really go towards that. Some people may feel like some of their actions are quite small, but when we do them on a large scale, they actually become really quantitative. That will go a huge way in order for us to achieve our net zero targets. At the moment, we're looking at striving to be net zero by 2030. That's a huge target for us to achieve, and we will need all staff to contribute in order for us to achieve that. One of the other initiatives that we've got in place is the Green Champions Network. And my idea is that we will have a green champion in every single area of the hospital. They will be our eyes and ears on the ground. They will be able to report back to us about the wastage that they see in the system, improvements that they can see, and also projects. Quite often people in their own expertise come across projects that are going on elsewhere and ones that they want to bring to the hospital. That can sometimes give them the opportunity to bring them to us, and we can then support them in order to achieve that.
That's fantastic, and it sounds really encouraging that we've got so much in place. So all we need now is both the trust and individuals to make those little changes and to support what we're doing. And as a trust board, we always now look at the sustainability impact of the decisions that we're making. And again, early steps, but all in the right direction. So is there anything else you would like to say to people who are watching this Chief Exec shout out about sustainability and what they can do to make a difference?
Yeah, so we have a huge amount of resource now on our sustainability page on StaffNet. If you want to start including sustainability in your team meetings, there's a toolkit on there which really lays out quite simply some things that you can start looking at. That will be a bit of a working document, because as we progress through our sustainability journey, that will be updated. So that will be constantly giving more information to our staff in order to make more changes within their department to become more sustainable. Signing up for the Choosing Greener programme is an absolute brilliant one to do, because it gives you an introduction on what carbon means, what it actually means for the trust, and what measures that they can do in order to change that, reduce their carbon footprint going forward. There's some wonderful activities that you can get involved in. Even going for a walk, you can take a picture and post it on the app, and then people can then see, the kind of things that you've been doing, engaging with nature, but also in showing what you've been doing in terms of recycling as well. Reducing what you're using, what you're recycling. That's a really great initiative to sign up to. And then if you have the time to be able to do it, think about becoming a green champion. All the details again are on StaffNet. Drop me a line if you want to know a bit more information. It's as little or as much as you want to give, but just having somebody there that's acting as a green champion within that department will really help us to drive this forward.
That is fantastic. Kirsty, thank you so much. And I'm sure everyone will be really motivated by what you've described. And I hope that we can start to showcase through the Chief Exec shout-outs some of the great team efforts that undoubtedly will take place to improve our sustainability. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you may have heard about the campaign that we've launched recently called Tick the Box. Now, this campaign is being led by one of our staff networks, the Disability and Wellbeing Network, also known as Dawn. Now, I'm really delighted to be joined by Frank Frail today, and Frank chairs the Dawn Network. So he's going to tell us a little bit about Tick the Box campaign. Frank, welcome.
Hi.
So tell me a little bit about the campaign and why are we trying to do this?
Yeah. Well, one of our trust values is putting people first, and our workforce is our biggest resource, and we know a large proportion of our workforce will have a disability, a long-term condition, or a mental health condition, and certainly talking to our staff, and we've already launched campaigns, so we're talking to lots of people about it and starting the conversation about disability and long-term health conditions, which is great. But we know a lot of people don't want to say things about it. They're scared, or maybe they think they might be discriminated against for whatever reason. And what we're trying to do is start that conversation that allows us to ensure that people feel able to do that, people feel that they will get the support if they come forward, and managers also will feel able to have the skills to start that conversation. But the starting point is that not many people have declared that they have a disability or long-term health condition, only about 4%, and we think probably about 20% of our staff probably do have a long-term health condition or disability, and we want them to be able to come forward and say things about it. And tick the box is the starting point of it, but actually having the conversation is the really important bit, so managers and teams can understand more about what the diverse skills that disability and long-term health conditions can bring to them.
That's brilliant, and I think it's really, really important, because what you've described is as trying to get something started. Tick the box is just the beginning. To really say that this is a safe place to be. We want to understand what the diverse makeup of our teams are, so we can provide the right level of support. I guess as you were talking about some of the concerns about, or the reasons why people might not do it, is concern about being judged or discrimination. I suppose there's also something about making people being concerned that it might define them.
Yeah.
And I think our response to that is going to be really, really important. So what are you hoping the Trust will be able to do to support people? What sort of things have we got now, and might we want to develop?
Yeah. There's some really good things that are happening at the moment. The wellbeing rooms was a great thing that was launched in the last few weeks, and hopefully people have been in to have a look at them and feel the opportunity there to do that. But I think that the big thing, as I say, is to start that conversation so that your team members, if you have a disability or long-term health condition, your team members or your manager feels able to have that conversation. You then have a different relationship with someone once they start to have that conversation, and then you can get the strengths that a lot of people with these kind of issues will bring a lot to the organisation, because they will have their own lived experience, but there's a strength and resilience that people have, having lived through the difficulties that it can bring, that they will bring to the team, and the team will understand that. But also it's about ensuring we don't focus on the things that people can't do. So if there's a 10 or 15% of things that people can't do, well, you don't focus on that. You focus on the 80 or 90% of things they do, and they do really well. And I reflect on a conversation we've had, actually, and over the years, I remember when I first started, you were always like, you're always kind of not quite there in time for meetings, or the papers aren't quite there. Well, that's because of my health condition. I have ADHD, and I do struggle with concentration, etc. But a very great response you had to me, it was about the insight that I had about that and the support that I could put around it, rather than someone else who might have said, get it right next time, get it here on time, sort of thing. And actually, I know that I always will struggle with that, but people understand the other things that I bring to the role I do, and we put in support around me for the things that I struggle with, which is excellent. Yeah,
I think that's really good, and it's really powerful when somebody feels able to be safe enough to talk about their lived experience. And I think collectively it raises a level of understanding about each other. We all bring things, and that's a great richness, I think, to our diverse workforce. I think that's really important. But with understanding, I think it also helps us be really caring, and also empowers us to work differently and better in an appreciative way with the people that we're caring for as well, and our patients and their families. And I think it's also, it's about the quality of the conversation, which is then, and I was watching a lecture last night which said, and it was actually about gender bias, was saying, you're going to get it wrong lots of times, and that's, you just need to own the fact that actually maybe I didn't do that so well. Help me think about how we can help you, individual person, be the best you can be. And I think that's really, really powerful. Now, is there anything else we can do as a trust to support the Dawn Network, or is it about just continuing to promote the importance of conversations and support and meeting individuals' needs.
I think they're obviously the basis of what we're trying to do, but I think as we get more information, we will find out more about the wide range of disability we have and long-term health conditions, and we can then think more about the sorts of things we need to be doing. So Stephen Keith's our executive sponsor, so what we can do with
Great.
HR in terms of thinking about the obvious things are what we do around ensuring that staff who are struggling with things get the opportunity to have their job looked at and get reasonable adjustments put in. And that's something that we're looking at to work on more. But the other bit is to ensure that we get the spaces around the hospital that allow us to continue to give people space to step out of the workplace when it's difficult.
Yeah.
And I think if we, for example, find there's lots of hidden disability in the organisation, we can do more about that and work on people's understanding of autism, ADHD and other neurodiversity. And we've also got a member of our network who's a wheelchair user who's working with the states about, we're on a slope here where we're stood at the moment, but actually access and things like that, which is another aspect of what we're talking about.
Yeah, Frank, that's absolutely brilliant. And I think, the Dawn Network, all of our staff networks are making such a difference, both to us as a trust and how we respond to things, what we're putting up the importance list, which is really long overdue, but also it's there to really support our teams right across the trust because they do so much for us. This is the least that we can do for others. Frank, thank you, and thank you for your leadership and your personal journey story. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I'm joined with Karen Reeves, who's our head of complex flow for the hospital. And what this involves is working with many of our partners to make sure that our more complicated patients get to the right setting as soon as possible. Now, I'm talking to Karen today because she's heading up a really new and exciting scheme, and we want to hear all about it. Karen, welcome. So you're head of complex flow and you're just launching a scheme which is called Hospital to Home. Can you just tell me a little bit about it and why do we need it?
So, the scheme is going to be a therapy-led team comprising support workers of band 3 and 4 who are going to be their therapeutic support workers. So they're going to be working with patients, working alongside staff in the hospital to identify patients who a bit of support at home, a bit of extra support they are able to take home and enable them to really go back to independence, really.
Yeah, so that independence is really, really important, isn't it? And we know that we've got lots of challenges about helping and supporting patients getting to the right setting. So why is it needed now and why haven't we done it before?
So at the moment, I think everybody is aware that there's a real workforce problem, and home-based services are completely very limited at the moment, very completed services, and so it's really important that we maximise the opportunities where we have them. We've got a lot of patients who we're not able to discharge from the hospital early enough, and they're not, and where we're delaying that discharge, we're delaying their opportunity to re-able and to get back to their baseline, if you like. So what we want to do is hit that sweet spot, if you like, so that we really get people out just as they're turning fit, and with the delays that we have at the moment, they're having to wait for that opportunity.
So the principle is, if I've got this right, is to make sure that we've got good therapy support, to work with our patients, but to try and get them home in preference to other settings of care if they're suitable for that, and to make sure that we can get the right support and get them back to as much independence as possible. Now that sounds terrific. So tell me a little bit about how this helps us with partnership working, but also what's it been like setting this up for the first couple of days?
So obviously there's the discharge to assess team, and there's voluntary organisations in the community that pick patients up to continue ongoing support. So we've aligned our service with discharge to assess, so that we know that when a patient is going out, we'll do that initial part of the support and then hand over to our colleagues for their ongoing needs. They've been really helpful, and actually lots of the policies and processes, thinking about lone working and things like that, they've supported us with that. So lots of support, and I think we're hoping that we can work in a sort of symbiotic fashion. It's really been tough trying to get this set up, because in the same way as communities and services are struggling, as we all are, recruitment is really tough at the moment. So although we think there's a big workforce out there, we don't seem to be able to find them, but we are lucky. We have managed to get quite a few. We've not all the staff yet, so we're about halfway there now, so we will start in a small way.
Great. So it sounds like it's building up slowly. It's actually trying to use our skills in the right place for maximum effect. And most of all, it's about supporting our patients and making the most of the great partnership arrangements that we've got across Plymouth. Karen, thank you so much. That's been really, really interesting, and I'm sure we'll have an update on that in future months. Thank you. So I hope you've really enjoyed this month's Chief Exec shout out. As always, we've got a lot of ground that we want to cover in the Trust, and a lot of really, really positive things that are happening. And that's important for us to have a look at those things against a backdrop of what we know are continuing hospital pressures and a recent uptake in the numbers of people with COVID. And I honestly never underestimate how hard it is for all of you to continue to provide such outstanding care in such an ongoing, sustained set of pressures. And I must also add to that, I know how many of you have been deeply affected by the war in Ukraine, not just because of your loved ones and relatives that might be there, and for colleagues who have got loved ones in Russia, but all of the challenges that war and devastation brings to each and every one of us. If you look in your daily email, we are giving quite a lot of information, I hope, on how you can best support the effort, provide aid, support, and I know I've had so many emails of people wanting to do what they can, and anything that we can do, I know, will be hugely appreciated. But at these times, it's really important that we continue to use all of the health and wellbeing offers to our staff. That is so important, and if the right sort of thing isn't there for you, please let me know. You know, my top two priorities are getting our patients treated in a good environment, in a timely way, and making sure that each and every one of you feel really supported to carry on and do the fantastic things that you do. So please do use the health and wellbeing offers. But finally, I would like to just end on a high point. I had the great pleasure of joining an event that was held at Plymouth Argyle to recruit healthcare support workers. This was almost like a one-stop shop for people that aren't involved currently in delivering care. You arrive, you watch a video, you had some details taken, an interview on the day, and then you had the offer of a job. And we appointed on the day over 250 people. At the end, when you've had your interview, there's an opportunity for you to have a photograph with a little banner that says, "I got the job." And I had the honour of talking to some people, and people described it as, "I can't believe it. I've just won the lottery." And others were so emotional about how having a job would change their lives and their families' lives. And we were supported by a national organisation called Attend. It was probably one of the best feel-good moments, well, a couple of hours I've had in a long time. Absolutely incredible. So I'm really pleased that we will be welcoming over 250 colleagues in different roles, different backgrounds, and again, we can really celebrate the diversity and the richness of our colleague workforce and what that brings to each and every one of us and the care we provide for patients. So take care, thank you as always, and do use some of the offers of support that we've got for you.